Hello and welcome to the online review of Chapter 1 of Living Theatre. In this chapter we discuss the origins of theatre and how it relates to other human behaviors. Historians, anthropologists and theatre scholars note that many of our everyday interactions share qualities of theatrical performance. We often consider our function in society as a role that we play. We change our behavior according to different situations. Some people might define theatre as a form of storytelling that involves imitation. From our earliest age, we use imitation to learn things. This is called mimesis, a primary component of European theatre. As we learn through imitation, we also form memories from experiences. We store them in our minds as stories or narratives. When we relate an experience to another person, we are storytelling, structuring our experience with a beginning, middle and end. This gives form to the moment-to-moment chaos of everyday life. Both mimesis and storytelling are performances, but by themselves they do not constitute theatre. Performance begins to resemble theatre when aesthetic, or artistic, choices are applied to enhance the experience. A person telling a story might pause to add suspense, change their voice to imply an emotion or gesture to illustrate something that is not actually there. Storytelling was vital to early cultures which depended on their shaman to keep their history alive. Shamanistic practice is a significant precursor to theatre. Activities that incorporate song or specialized movement such as dance or pantomime also influence theatre. They are known as popular entertainments. Performances such as a group dance, a parade or even a sporting event have aesthetic values, but do not incorporate dramatic acting. Ceremonies and rituals both incorporate many aesthetic values. Ceremonies are formal events led by an authority figure. They are not as prescribed as a ritual, which has a more strictly organized format. Song, costume, prescribed movement and even mask-wearing might be involved in these activities, but it is not considered theatrical because the participant does not play a role to represent another person. The Abydos ritual of ancient Egypt is seen as one of the earliest recorded ritual dramas. The participants were actors of roles, representing the characters of the story, but scholars still argue about whether it is theatre or not. This is because a ritual, unlike theatre, has two prescribed elements: efficaciousness and metexis. These are terms that refer to the purpose of an event and the shared experience of it. A sacrificial rite is believed to be efficacious because it is thought to have a purpose. The shared experience of all who participate is called metexis. Another similar activity is participatory theatre. This refers to therapeutic storytelling, psychodrama or sociodrama. New theatre movements of the 20th century were participatory. They removed barriers by inviting the audience into the performance space or addressing them directly. This was not consistent with the established theatre at the time. It might seem that the definition of theatre is surprisingly narrow. It shares many characteristics with other performances, but only a few activities are seen as theatrical. However, many contemporary theatre artists incorporate ritualistic or participatory elements into their practice. To accommodate this, scholars are using the term performance to refer to these practices and theatre to refer to dramatic acting. As we examine our subject, we should also take a look at how historians have constructed its history. First, historians point to the characteristics that identify it as theatre. Then they reconstruct the practice by looking at 7 elements. These are the playing space, the audience, the performers, the visual elements, the texts, the combination of these elements and the social requirements. You will find in reading about theatre practice that certain scholars emphasize one or more elements over others. This shows how you can examine history from many different perspectives. Most historians use a combination of different perspectives to give rich descriptions of the past. In this textbook, the authors have chosen to take a positivist approach. This suggests that history can be explained logically in a cause and effect narrative. There are many other trends in how theatre history is researched and analysed. Revisionist historians stress that history is often recorded by the social elite. This gives us a skewed perspective. Some everyday aspects of life are ignored in favour of events that are important only to a privileged minority. By revising the approaches, we are able to see what was previously overlooked. Feminist historians are an example of revisionists who argue that the role of women has not been represented accurately. Deconstructionists argue that history is biased and must be analysed in terms of who is empowered by it and who is not. Multicultural historians focus on cultural groups that are underrepresented. Often these are non-European or colonized cultures. Gay and lesbian historians emphasize the impact of sexual orientation in theatrical representation. They examine the portrayal of gays and lesbians as well as works created by them. Semioticians and iconographic scholars are concerned with the inherent meaning of signs and symbols. They point out that the text, or the script, has been overemphasized, ignoring the symbolic significance of other elements such as visual design. Marxist historians focus on how theatre reflects economic and political oppression. Marxism examines how power structures and class-oriented oppression influence historic phenomena. These are only a few approaches, and one can easily see how they might overlap with each other. The concluding sections of this chapter outline the importance of theatre history to young artists like yourself, who seek to understand the heritage of their work. Theatre history also provides information about past societies by showing us how they reflected on their own beliefs and behavior. But everything in this book should not be taken as law. History tends to focus on the high points. When literature, scenic design or architecture went through processes of revolution, it is important to remember that there are significant accomplishments in the years that precede and follow these points in time. Also, there are long periods of time when theatrical activity is strong, but with no new developments. This should not diminish their significance just because we place a premium on the new. History is often biased to views that are currently valued. This is why some works, which might not have been considered important in their own time, have become significant in the eyes of historians. This concludes the online review for Chapter 1. Thank you and goodbye for now.